when we are saying that the ignorance is removed from the one person, because we are many minds, right?
Yes.
So the ignorance has to be removed multiple times in multiple minds.
Yes.
So then that's leading to the other one is about the experience itself, especially about suffering. So, I feel like in my mind, this mind, I've got a ticket. I know I can get out of it.
Yes.
But somebody close to me, I can see them, they're suffering, and
right.
I can explain to them this whole thing.
Right.
So what about them? Like, do we have to worry about them?
Right. This knowledge removes suffering, but it only removes suffering from the person who has that knowledge. So it's particularly from your point of view. The others, there is a whole philosophical point of whether there are others or not. So for example, in your dream, clearly, though you see others, they are not others. They are all one with you, the dreamer. Now, in this waking world, the approach is, you can approach it in both ways. One way is that you accept that there are all others. This approach is called Srishti Drishti Vada. I will not explain in detail. But there is another approach in which you take Drishti Srishti Vada, in which it is equated to a dream in which there are no others. You are the only one who exists. It's a very solipsistic approach to Advaita. But the practical answer to your question is this. For others, always have the sense of oneness and sympathy, and try your best to remove the suffering of others. Why? You say this, it's a truism, and any good person would try to remove the sufferings of others. But explain from the point of view of Advaita why you would try to remove the sufferings of others. The answer is very simple. All this Advaita that we are doing, the first practical answer, then I'll give you the philosophical answer. This Advaita that we are doing, all of this, is it not to remove my own suffering? I am practicing all of this to remove my own suffering. I do everything to remove my own suffering. If I have hunger, I go and eat. If I'm sick, I go and take medicine. And if I understand in depth that my real problem is ignorance, then I try to remove ignorance by spiritual illumination, by enlightenment. So all the time I'm trying to remove my suffering from a physical level, subtle level, and at the causal level also. If that is so, Advaita tells you alone are everybody else. Then the effort to remove my suffering and the effort to remove other person's suffering should be at the equal level. A truly spiritual person will identify with everybody and will work to remove their suffering. Now you say you cannot enlighten others. You can, if you have that power, then you would give spiritual knowledge. That's a service to remove the suffering of others. But if you cannot, then help in other ways. Swami Vivekananda said, suffering can be removed by service. Service can be at the level of, relief from hunger, from disease, from secular ignorance, by giving secular education. All of that is based on an Advaitic approach. That if I myself am suffering in these ways, from disease, from hunger, from cold, from being illiterate, from being oppressed, so all of these ways I can help others, and I should. So the two answers here. Practical answer is, because I work to remove my own suffering, and yet Advaita tells me I alone am all of that, then I should work to remove other people's suffering also. If I work to remove this body-mind suffering and ignore others, there's a deep ignorance working in that. And the philosophical answer is, the basis for this approach is the oneness of all existence. Advaita says, you alone are all of this. If all of this is one, then efforts for removing suffering should encompass everybody also. Yes.
Prayer also for them.
Definitely. So what do you do for them? You can pray for them, and whatever physical, mental, emotional need you can satisfy for others as a service, you should do it. One should certainly do it. Swami Akhandananda, who started an orphanage, he was a great Vedantin. After Sri Ramakrishna passed away, he traveled to Tibet and in the Himalayas. Very beautiful books he has written. And at one time, I think Yes. He had decided that he would forever go away to the Himalayas and spend the rest of his life there in meditation and spiritual practice. He was traveling through Bahrampur, one of the poorest areas. Even now it's one of the poorest areas of Bengal, West Bengal. And at that time it was in the grip of famine. People were starving. And he couldn't bear the sufferings of those people. And he said, I can't do anything for them. Let me go away from here. What can I do? And he saw this little girl, very skinny, emaciated, a Muslim girl. She was sitting and weeping helplessly. And he asked her, what's wrong? And she said that the poor family, they owned only one pot. Oh, the pot again, the Vedantic pot. They owned only one pot. And she had come to fetch water with that pot, and it fell and it broke, and now she was afraid that her mother would scold her and beat her, and she was crying. She obviously had not had food to eat, and she was so helpless. Now there, Akhandananda did not tell her that it was clay all along, and he took her to the shop, and he had a few paisa, few cents with him, which he spent to buy her a pot for her. Immediately he was surrounded by a group of hungry children, all clamoring for food, tugging at his robes. And he stayed there that night, and he prayed to Sri Ramakrishna that what can I do for them? And Sri Ramakrishna said, you stay here and wait and see, it will all happen in its time. It's a wonderful work of service which started at that time, the first orphanage of the Ramakrishna order, and the work of service which is still going on. Even now, people in that locality, they call it Baba's ashram. Baba is the old father, that means Akhandananda's ashram. He stayed there for the rest of his life. This great Vedantin who wanted to go to the Himalayas and meditate and spend the rest of his life there, he stayed here. Did he give up the Vedantic point of view? Not at all. This was a flowering of the Vedantic point of view. One great Vedanta scholar, Pramada Das Babu from Kashi, he wrote a letter to Akhandananda slightly critical about him. He said, you are monks. You wander the land and you beg for your food and you teach spirituality. You give talks on Mandukya. Why start all these schools? And these are meant for people in the society. This is not your work, Swami. Akhandananda wrote back a fiery letter. He said, that one existence, which we talk about in Vedanta, I see that in the poor and the hungry, in the tears of the helpless. If this life is spent in service to them, to Brahman in all of these forms, and for that I have to go to hell, I'm ready to go to hell many times over to serve my Lord in all of these forms. Now, this is real Vedanta. This is a real flowering of Vedanta. It follows directly from the teachings of Gaudapada also. Thank you.